As you just heard from Craig Oliver, no question about it, BC is going to be a key battleground province in this upcoming federal election. Paul Martin already taking time over the weekend, of course, at the Grey Cup to do a little campaigning, as did Peter MacKay. Now, with the official campaign underway, what does it take to win British Columbia? With us to talk about this, we've got political pundit out in British Columbia, Michael Geoghegan. Mr. Geoghegan, good morning.
Good morning.
And thank you very much for joining us, because when you look at the polling numbers for British Columbia, they are neck and neck between the NDP, the Conservatives, and the Liberals. Right now, would you say it's anybody's game?
Yes, I would. I would say that we're going to see a lot of three-way races throughout British Columbia. The latest polling numbers from a CTV poll, 35% for the Liberals, 30% for the Conservatives, 29% for the NDP. Clearly, both the Liberals and the NDP are looking to gain seats in British Columbia. The Conservatives are looking to hold on to the clear majority of seats they won last time.
And Michael, what I find kind of ironic about this is, you know, the Conservatives have been, I guess in the eyes of many BCers, a protest vote. But now, because they are being seen, particularly in this election, as a plausible alternative to the Liberals, they may lose some of that protest vote to the NDP.
Well, yeah, and I mean, British Columbia has a real history of switching back and forth between Conservative and NDP voters. I mean, people forget that in the first Mulroney landslide, British Columbia sent an overwhelming number of Conservatives, but in the second term, the majority of the province actually went NDP, even though the Conservative government was re-elected federally. So we do have this real sense of sending a protest vote to Ottawa. Yeah. But now, because essentially the Bloc has taken Quebec out of the mathematical equation in terms of who gets to be government, be it minority or majority, British Columbians are reevaluating that and saying, gee, do we want to help crown a government rather than simply send an opposition to Ottawa?
Conservatives, let's look at the seat numbers right now, Michael. Conservatives at 22, the Liberals at 8, the NDP at 5, and of course there's that one vacancy due to the unfortunate passing of Chuck Cadman. So what you're looking at now perhaps is a growth in NDP, but perhaps at the expense of the Conservatives?
You know, it could be really interesting. For example, in Victoria, there are 3 federal ridings in the provincial capital, and right now people are betting that one of those ridings, Saanich, will stay Conservative. The other, Keith Martin, who crossed from the Conservatives to the Liberals, he's still the odds-on favorite to hold that for the Liberals. But David Anderson's old riding in Victoria City itself, right now the NDP look like the odds-on favorite to win it. And there's a typical scenario where you have 3 ridings, and one of each could end up going to the 3 major federal parties.
And the NDP already boasting that they think they can double those numbers from 5 to 10 plus. A lot of it based, they say, on the popularity right now of Carol James. So I guess we can expect to see a little more Jack Layton during this campaign out in British Columbia.
You know, I mean, British Columbia is going to go from, you know, like Craig Oliver said earlier, you know, feeling snubbed to feeling an embarrassment of riches in terms of having federal political leaders visiting us and wooing the voters. It's going to be great. British Columbians are going to enjoy it.
Michael, what other seats, what other contests there are you keeping a close eye on? What ridings do you think will be particularly dramatic? Give us a sneak preview.
Well, obviously in the urban ridings, I mean, the Conservatives tend to have more of a stronghold in the rural ridings. Although at the provincial level, we saw some surprises where we saw the NDP make gains in rural ridings that they've never held before. But at the federal level, clearly it's going to be a very strong 3-way race. We have a race shaping up in Vancouver between Hedy Fry and Ben Robinson, who's trying to stage a political comeback, you know, after that whole shoplifting incident. So, I mean, a lot of interesting races. I would say the urban ridings are going to be the real 3-way split ridings.
Now let's talk about the Liberals, because I mean they're going into this already touting their BC agenda, saying that they fulfill most of their promises, whether it be infrastructure getting ready for 2010, or whether it be talking tough on softwood lumber, the Mountain Beetle disaster, you know, the money that came in for that. Do you think that they do have a record to boast, or are most people not satisfied with the way that the Liberals have governed federally anyway, represented them in Ottawa?
Well, I think there certainly have been some improvements. I mean, we've had them, you know, clearly increased cabinet representation at the table. Ujo Dosanjh, the Minister of Health, David Emerson, the Minister of Industry, you know, other ministers, other parliamentary secretaries. Plus, there was the decision to move the Canadian Tourism Centre from Ottawa to Vancouver, which to anyone out in British Columbia makes makes absolute sense. I mean, this is the premier tourist destination for Canada. There was obviously some people back in Ottawa who weren't too happy with it, but I mean, those things have been noticed by British Columbians, and that's why I think you're seeing right now the Liberals are in the lead. Whether it holds over what is essentially now a 2-month campaign remains to be seen, but I think it is reflected in the numbers because, like I say, historically, British Columbians have tended to flip between the Conservatives and NDP and skipped right over the Liberals.
Well, one thing we know, BC politics is never dull. Thank you very much, Michael.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with more on AM. Stay with us.